I saw the bruises on my house, girl, and my revenge shook the whole town. Armin lived in a small town where everyone knew each other. Life there was quiet and simple. People smiled at each other on the streets, children played freely in the parks, and neighbors often shared small gifts or warm greetings. Arman himself led a peaceful life. He had a modest home, a steady job, and a kind heart. He was known in the town as someone who was polite, responsible, and willing to help anyone in need. Among the people who worked in his house, the one who had always stood out was Sana. Sana was a young girl, cheerful and hardworking. She had been working in Armin's house for several years. She would clean the house, cook meals, and sometimes help with little errands. She was gentle, soft-spoken, and always greeted Arman with a smile in the morning. There was something calming about her presence. Even on Armin's busiest days, seeing her cheerful face would make him feel a little lighter. For years, life seemed normal. Armin went to work, came back home, and saw Sana busy with her daily tasks. He had noticed small details about her over time, how she hummed quietly while cleaning, how she sometimes paused to gaze outside the window, lost in thought. But Armin had never paid too much attention to her private life. He had assumed, like most people, that everything was fine. After all, Sana never complained or spoke about any problems. One morning, Arman returned home earlier than usual. He had a day off from work, and he thought he would spend a quiet day at home. As he entered the house, he noticed Sana in the kitchen, preparing breakfast. The sunlight poured through the window and fell on her, illuminating the usually bright kitchen. For a moment, everything seemed normal, but then something caught his eye. Sana's sleeves were rolled down unusually long, covering most of her arms. She moved quickly, as if trying to hide something. Her hands shook slightly as she stirred the tea. Something about her seemed different. Armin paused and looked more carefully. That's when he noticed it. Faint marks on her wrists, small, purple bruises that looked fresh. For a moment, Armin felt disbelief. He blinked, thinking he might have imagined it. But no, the marks were real. There were bruises on her arms and a faint shadow near her collarbone. The sight made his heart tighten. How could someone so kind and gentle carry such pain in silence?
Armin approached her quietly.
Sana, he said softly. What happened? Sana froze. Her eyes widened slightly, and she quickly moved her hand to cover her arm. It's nothing, she said, her voice barely above a whisper.
I fell yesterday. It's nothing serious.
Armin didn't believe her. He knew her well. He had seen her fall, stumble, or make mistakes before, and this did not look like an accident. There was a hesitation in her voice, a fear he had never heard from her before. His heart ached for her. He wanted to comfort her, to tell her that she didn't have to hide anything from him, that she was safe now. Sana, he said gently, you don't have to hide it. You can tell me. I want to help you. For a moment, she looked away, her eyes filled with tears. She was trying to hold back. Armin waited patiently, giving her the space to speak. Slowly, she lowered her gaze and whispered, It's my family. They hurt me sometimes. I didn't want anyone to know.
Armin felt a wave of anger and sorrow mixed together. How could someone so young, someone so kind, suffer in silence while the world around her seemed peaceful?
He wanted to shout at the injustice, but he knew that shouting wouldn't help her. What she needed was support, care, and someone to stand by her. He sat down across from her and spoke calmly. Sana, I'm so sorry this has happened to you.
You don't have to face it alone anymore. I promise I will do everything I can to make sure you are safe.
Sana's shoulders trembled as she nodded slightly. For the first time in years, she felt a small sense of relief, knowing that someone cared enough to believe her and protect her. Burman could see the fear and pain in her eyes, but he also saw a spark of hope, a hope that maybe things could change, that life didn't have to be only suffering. The next few days were quiet but tense. Armin kept a close eye on Sana, making sure she felt safe. He would speak to her gently, asking if she needed anything, and she slowly began to open up. But she told him small details about her life. The moments when she felt scared, the times she had tried to hide the bruises from others, and the nights when she wished someone would notice her pain. Arman listened carefully, never interrupting, never judging. He just listened and offered comfort.
At the same time, Armin realized that this problem was bigger than just Sana.
The town appeared peaceful on the outside, but behind closed doors, people were hiding their struggles, their fears, and sometimes even their cruelty. He started thinking about the importance of noticing the people around him, about how many others might be suffering silently, just like Sana. One afternoon, Arman noticed Sana sitting by the window, staring outside with a faraway look. He sat beside her and asked softly, "Do you ever feel like there's a way out? A place where you can be safe and happy?" "But I want to be free. I want to feel safe, but I don't know how."
Armin held her hand gently. "We'll find a way together."
"You won't have to face this alone anymore." From that moment, Arman made a silent promise to himself. He would protect Sana, help her find freedom, and make sure that no one in the town would ignore her suffering. He knew it wouldn't be easy. People in the town often looked the other way when it came to family matters, but he also knew that he could not stand still. If he ignored it, he would be failing not just Sana, but the principle of what was right. Days passed, and Arman began to notice small changes. Sana's posture, though still cautious, seemed slightly more relaxed. She laughed softly at times, though the laughter was hesitant.
He encouraged her to do small things she enjoyed, reading, cooking her favorite dishes, or taking walks outside. Slowly, he realized that even small gestures of kindness could begin to heal the wounds left by years of fear and abuse.
Arman also began to observe the town more carefully. He noticed how some neighbors ignored what was happening behind closed doors, how some families seemed perfect on the outside, but hid secrets inside. He realized that Sana's story was not unique. There were probably many others who needed help but had no one to turn to. This thought strengthened his resolve. One evening, as the sun set and painted the sky with shades of orange and pink, Arman sat with Sana on the porch. The air was calm, the streets quiet. He looked at her and said softly, "You're not alone anymore. I promise I will find a way to make sure you are safe, and I won't let anyone hurt you again." Sana nodded slowly, her eyes glistening with unshed tears. For the first time in a long time, she felt a glimmer of hope. She realized that there was someone who truly cared for her, someone willing to stand by her side no matter what challenges lay ahead. As the night fell and the town grew silent, Armin knew that this was only the beginning. He had seen the bruises, yes, but he had also seen the courage in Sana's eyes. And he knew that together they would find a way to face the darkness and bring light, not just to her life, but maybe to the lives of others in the town who were suffering in silence. That night, Arman stayed awake, thinking about what needed to be done next. He made a plan to gather information, to understand the situation fully, and to protect Sana from further harm. But more than anything, he wanted her to feel safe, loved, and respected. He knew it would take time, patience, and courage, but he was ready. For the first time in a long while, Armin felt a burning determination, a drive to right a wrong that had been hidden in plain sight. And in that quiet town under the blanket of stars, a journey began. A journey that would test courage, resilience, and the power of standing up for someone who could not fight alone. After the first morning when Armand had noticed Sana's bruises, life at home changed, though quietly. Armin did not want to rush her or force her to speak, because he knew that trust had to grow slowly. For years, Sana had hidden her pain, and he could not expect her to open up in a single day. Instead, he focused on small gestures of kindness, showing her that he cared and that her safety mattered. Sana, on the other hand, felt a mix of fear and relief. Fear because she had never trusted anyone fully, and relief because someone finally saw her pain and did not judge her. She remembered the many nights when she had cried silently, when she had hidden the bruises under long sleeves, hoping no one would notice. But now, seeing Armand's concern, she began to feel a tiny spark of hope that maybe, just maybe, life could be different. One afternoon, Armand decided to sit with her in the living room. He poured them both tea and asked softly, "Sana, if you feel ready, can you tell me what's been happening?" Sana looked down at her hands, twisting them nervously. She hesitated, afraid of speaking the truth. Her voice was barely audible when she began. It's my family. My father, sometimes my older brother. They hit me. I never wanted anyone to know." Armin listened quietly, not interrupting, not reacting too strongly, because he wanted her to feel safe. He could feel his anger rising inside him, but he kept it under control. What mattered most was her safety and comfort in that moment.
You did the right thing by telling me, he said gently.
I know it's hard, but now we can think about how to keep you safe. Sana's eyes welled up with tears. I don't know if I can go back home, she whispered. They will hurt me again.
You won't have to go back if it's dangerous. We will figure this out together.
Beat. You don't have to face this alone.
Over the next few days, Armand focused on building trust.
He encouraged Sana to talk about small things, like her favorite foods, the books she liked, and the little joys she remembered from happier times. Slowly, she started to open up, sharing more details about her life. Beth. She told him about the moments when she had tried to escape the house, the times she had hidden in closets or under beds, hoping no one would find her. Each story made Armand's heart ache, but he never let her feel judged or blamed.
One evening, Armand decided to ask gently about her family. Do you want to tell me more about what happens at home? He asked.
Sana hesitated, then nodded slightly. My father, he drinks a lot sometimes. When he gets angry, he hits me. My brother, he follows the same. They say terrible things, and I just try to stay quiet. He had always believed in fairness, in helping others, but hearing Sana's story made him realize how invisible suffering could be, even in a small, close-knit town. He thought about how people often assumed everything was fine behind closed doors, when in reality, many endured pain silently.
I'm so sorry this has happened to you, he said softly.
No! One should ever be treated this way!
But now we can start to make things better. Sana wiped her tears, feeling comforted by Armand's words. For the first time, she felt that someone truly understood her, that someone genuinely cared. She realized that opening up was the first step toward freedom, toward healing. The next morning, Armand went out with a purpose. He decided he needed to understand the situation more clearly before taking any action. He began by talking to people in the neighborhood, discreetly asking if they had noticed anything unusual.
Some people shrugged and avoided eye contact, while others admitted quietly that they had seen Sana's family act angrily or heard loud arguments at night.
Though the information was limited, it confirmed what Armand already suspected. Sana's suffering was not imagined, and others had noticed hints of it, but no one had acted. Back at home, Armand focused on making the house feel safe for Sana. He encouraged her to set small boundaries, like taking breaks when she felt overwhelmed, spending quiet time in her favorite corner of the house, and doing small things that made her feel comfortable. Slowly, he saw changes. Sana started smiling more often, laughing softly at little jokes, and even humming while she worked.
These small moments filled Armand with hope.
He realized that trust and care could slowly heal the wounds that fear had created.
One afternoon, as they sat in the garden drinking tea, Armand spoke gently about courage.
You know, Sana, being brave doesn't mean you're never afraid. It means that even when you are scared, you take one small step forward. You've already taken the first step by telling me the truth. Sana looked at him, a flicker of determination in her eyes.
I want to be brave, she said softly. I don't want to be afraid anymore.
Armand smiled. And you don't have to be afraid. Not while I'm here. With each passing day, our man began to plan the next steps carefully. He knew he couldn't act recklessly. Sana's safety was the most important thing, and any mistake could put her at risk. So, he began gathering information, quietly observing the town, and noting who might be able to help. He thought about reaching out to the few trustworthy people he knew, someone who could provide advice or support if needed. Meanwhile, Sana slowly gained confidence. She began talking about her dreams and hopes, things she had buried under years of fear. Frowned.
She spoke about wanting to study, to learn new skills, and to someday live a life where she felt free and safe. Armand encouraged her every step of the way, reminding her that her dreams were valid and achievable.
One evening, as the sun began to set, painting the sky in shades of gold and orange, Sana shared a memory from her childhood.
When I was little, I loved painting, she said quietly.
But I stopped because I was always afraid of making mistakes, of upsetting my father. Armand looked at her thoughtfully.
You should start painting again, he said.
Bask.
No one should take away what makes you happy. It's part of who you are.
Sana nodded, a small smile appearing on her face. For the first time in years, she felt that her life could have moments of joy, even in the middle of pain. As days turned into weeks, Armand continued to support her. He arranged small outings like walks in the park or visits to the library where Sana could feel safe and explore her interests.
Each outing was a small victory, a step toward reclaiming the life she deserved. At the same time, Armand realized that his role in this story was changing.
He was no longer just a kind employer. He had become a protector, a friend, and a source of hope. He knew that this journey would not be easy. The challenges were not only in confronting Sana's family, but also in helping her heal from years of fear and pain. But he was determined to see it through. One quiet evening, Armand and Sana sat on the porch, listening to the distant sounds of the town settling into night. Sana leaned back slightly, feeling a sense of calm she had never known before.
I feel safe here, she whispered. I didn't know anyone could care this much.
You deserve to feel safe. You deserve to be happy.
And I promise, we will make sure you stay that way. That night, as Armand reflected on the past weeks, he realized that the bruises he had seen on Sana were only the beginning of a deeper story.
There was pain, yes, but there was also courage, hope, and the possibility of change. He knew that the journey ahead would be challenging, that it would require careful planning and unwavering determination. But he also knew that he could not turn away, not when someone so kind and innocent needed help. And so, a plan began to take shape in his mind. He would protect Sana, gather the truth, and find a way to confront the wrongs she had suffered. He knew that justice would not come easily, but he was ready to face whatever obstacles lay ahead. The town, which seemed calm and ordinary on the surface, held secrets that needed to be revealed. And Arman was determined that Sana would no longer suffer in silence.
That night, under the quiet stars, both of them slept with a small but growing sense of hope. For Arman, the hope was in the promise of justice and protection.
For Sana, it was in the realization that she was not alone anymore, that someone cared deeply, and that a future free from fear might be possible. Little did they know, this was only the beginning, but the truth, once uncovered, would shake not only their lives but the entire town.
And the journey to justice, courage, and healing had only just begun.
After seeing Sana slowly begin to trust him, Arman realized that it was time to do more than just comfort her. The bruises on her arms were only the beginning. The pain she had endured for years was hidden in the shadows of her home and her family.
Arman knew that words alone could not protect her.
Something had to be done to ensure she would never suffer again. He spent the next few days carefully observing the town. Arman noticed things he had never paid attention to before. Some neighbors whispered about family disputes, but quickly changed the subject when he passed. Thus, others avoided eye contact, pretending that nothing unusual was happening. It became clear to him that the problem was bigger than Sana alone. The town had a way of hiding its darkest secrets behind polite smiles, and people often ignored what they did not want to see.
Arman decided that he needed to gather information.
But he could not let Sana's safety be at risk. Any wrong move could put her in danger. So he made a careful plan. First, he would observe quietly. Second, he would speak to trusted people who might help. And third, he would find a safe way to confront the problem. He began by talking to people he trusted, his closest neighbors, a retired lawyer who lived nearby, and a friend who worked at the local newspaper. He did not reveal everything, just asked small, careful questions. "Have you ever noticed any families in trouble?" he would ask casually. "Or heard anything unusual?" Most people avoided the conversation, but a few admitted they had seen arguments, strange behavior, and signs of unhappiness. These pieces of information were small, but together they painted a clearer picture. Arman realized that Sana's family had hidden their cruelty well, but there were always small cracks that revealed the truth. At the same time, Arman began helping Sana feel more secure. He encouraged her to take small walks outside the house, to visit the nearby park, and to enjoy simple things like fresh air or watching birds. These outings were not only moments of happiness, but also opportunities for Sana to see that the world outside her home could be safe and kind. Slowly, she began to smile more, to laugh quietly, and even to speak about her dreams, things she had long buried under fear. One evening, as they sat on the porch, Arman spoke about courage. "Being brave does not mean you are never afraid," he said gently. "It means that even when you are scared, you take one small step forward. You've already taken a big step by trusting me." Sana nodded, feeling a small but growing sense of determination. I want to be brave," she whispered. "I don't want to be afraid anymore." Arman smiled, realizing that the first stage of their journey was working. Trust had been built, and now it was time to move to the next step, planning a way to stop the abuse without putting Sana in danger. He spent days thinking and planning carefully. He wrote down what he knew about her family, their patterns, and the times when Sana had been in danger. He noted which neighbors might be willing to support them, which friends could provide advice, and which authorities could be contacted if needed. Every detail mattered, because one wrong step could ruin everything. Armin also realized that this problem was not just about punishment. It was about justice and protection. The goal was not to harm anyone unnecessarily, but to make sure Sana and others like her would be safe.
He wanted the abusers to face consequences, yes, but he also wanted the town to understand that such cruelty could not continue hidden behind closed doors.
Meanwhile, Sana continued to heal slowly. She began to talk about small things she liked: reading, painting, learning new skills. Armand encouraged her at every step, reminding her that her dreams were important and that no one had the right to take them away. He noticed how her confidence was growing, how her laughter was becoming more frequent, and how she began to stand a little taller each day. One afternoon, Armin decided to speak to a retired journalist who had once worked for the local newspaper. He wanted guidance on how to document the situation carefully without putting anyone at risk. The journalist listened attentively, asking questions and offering advice.
Sometimes the truth needs to be revealed slowly and carefully, the journalist said. You cannot rush it, but you must make sure it reaches the right people.
He realized that the truth, once gathered and presented carefully, could shake the town and make sure justice was done, but it also had to be done in a way that protected Sana completely. He began spending more time observing her family from a distance, noting their patterns and interactions. He saw how her father would become angry over small things, how her older brother would follow the same behavior, and how the family maintained a polite appearance outside the home.
These observations helped him understand the best way to plan his next steps.
Armin also started keeping a journal, documenting everything he knew about the abuse: dates, incidents, small details, and even conversations he had with neighbors. Each entry became a piece of evidence, not just for legal purposes, but to help him understand the full picture. He realized that knowledge was power, and without knowing the truth, no action could be taken safely.
At home, he continued to focus on Sana's well-being.
He encouraged her to learn, to explore her interests, and to take small risks in safe spaces. They would read books together, talk about her favorite stories, and even plan small outings to nearby areas where she could experience freedom safely. Each small success gave her courage, and each smile made Armin feel that his efforts were worthwhile. One evening, after a long day of observation and planning, Armin sat with Sana in the garden. He spoke softly. "Sana, soon we will take steps to make sure you are completely safe. But you must remember, courage comes in small steps."
You have already been very brave. Now we just need to plan carefully, and nothing will harm you.
Sana nodded, feeling a mixture of fear and hope.
I'm ready, she said quietly.
I want to be free. Armin felt a deep sense of responsibility. He knew that the road ahead would not be easy.
The abusers were powerful in their own ways, and the town had a habit of ignoring problems that were hidden behind closed doors. But he was determined.
He would take one step at a time, protect Sana, and make sure the truth came out safely.
He also began thinking about how to involve others without putting Sana at risk.
There were a few trusted neighbors, friends, and professionals who could help. He made mental notes of who could be involved and how to approach them. Everything had to be done carefully, like pieces of a puzzle, so that the plan would work perfectly. Days turned into weeks, and Armin's careful planning continued. He observed, documented, and strategized. Sana continued to heal, slowly gaining confidence in herself and in the world around her. She started speaking more openly, sharing her hopes and dreams, and even joking lightly about small, ordinary things in the house. Amma noticed how much courage she had gained, how she had begun to reclaim parts of her life that had been stolen by fear. Pay. One quiet evening, Armand reflected on everything he had learned. The town, which appeared peaceful and ordinary, was full of hidden stories, some sad, some unjust, and some waiting for someone brave enough to bring the truth into light. He realized that their journey was not just about protecting Sana, but also about making a difference in a place where silence had allowed cruelty to exist for too long. He knew that the next step would require courage, careful planning, and support. But he also knew that he could not turn back. Sana's life, her safety, and her future depended on the actions he would take. And he was ready to take them, no matter how difficult or dangerous the path might be. As the stars appeared in the night sky, Armin and Sana sat quietly together. There was a sense of calm, but also anticipation. Both of them knew that the days ahead would challenge them, but they also felt hope. Hope that justice could be served, hope that pain could be replaced by healing, and hope that a young girl who had suffered silently for years could finally live a life full of safety, freedom, and happiness. And so, in that quiet town, a plan began to form. Not a reckless plan, but one full of careful steps, patience, and determination. Armin had seen the bruises, he had heard the story, and he had made a silent promise he would protect Sana, bring justice, and make sure the darkness that had overshadowed her life could no longer touch her. The journey ahead would be challenging, but he was ready to face it, for the sake of courage, hope, and the truth. After weeks of careful observation, planning, and gathering information, Armand felt ready to take the next step. But he knew that exposing the truth would not be easy. Sana's family had been hiding their cruelty for years, and the town, though seemingly calm, often ignored signs of trouble. But Armand also knew that enough was enough. Sana had suffered in silence for too long, and it was time for the darkness in her life to be confronted and brought into the light. He began by speaking to the few people he trusted the most. There was the retired lawyer who had guided him on legal matters, the journalist who had offered advice on documenting everything carefully, and a small group of neighbors who had quietly admitted they knew about the family's problems.
Together they formed a careful plan.
Every detail had to be precise. The goal was not to embarrass or humiliate, but to expose the truth, protect Sana, and make sure the abusers faced consequences. Armand's first step was to ensure Sana's safety. He made arrangements for her to stay in a safe place during the confrontation, someone she could trust completely. He also provided her with a phone, money, and everything she might need in case the situation escalated. Sana felt a mixture of fear and relief. She knew the confrontation might be difficult, but she also trusted Armin completely. The next step was to gather undeniable proof of the abuse. Armand revisited his notes, photographs, and statements from people who had witnessed small incidents. He had documented dates, bruises, injuries, and arguments, all recorded carefully to ensure they could not be ignored. He also recorded conversations in which the family had revealed anger or cruelty, making sure everything was safe and legal. Every piece of evidence added weight to the plan, making it nearly impossible for anyone to deny the truth. Once the preparation was complete, the confrontation itself had to be carefully timed. Armin chose a day when the town would notice, ensuring that the abusers could not act recklessly. Deske. He contacted the journalist and lawyer to be present, and together they made a plan for public exposure that would be safe for Sana and others who had suffered in silence. On the day of the confrontation, Armand felt a mix of tension and determination. He had rehearsed every step in his mind, imagining how each person might react. Sana, though nervous, walked beside him with a quiet courage that had grown over the past weeks. She had already started to reclaim her strength, and now she was ready to face the people who had caused her so much pain. The family did not expect what was coming. When Armand arrived, he calmly presented the evidence he had collected. Each photograph, each note, and each statement was laid out carefully. The abusers tried at first to deny everything, but the proof was overwhelming. The lawyer spoke calmly, explaining the legal consequences, while the journalist quietly documented the events. The town began to notice as whispers spread quickly about what was happening. At first, the abusers tried to shout and resist, but their lies could not stand against the weight of the truth. Arman spoke firmly but calmly, telling them that the time for hiding cruelty and fear was over. Bet. Sana, standing behind him, found a courage she had never known before. She spoke about her experiences, her fear, and the years of pain she had endured. Her voice trembled at first, but with each word, her confidence grew. The truth was no longer hidden. It was out in the open, and the town could not ignore it. Bears. Neighbors gathered quietly, watching the confrontation unfold. Many were shocked. Some whispered apologies to themselves for ignoring what had been happening in their midst. Others admired Sana's courage and Arman's determination to protect her and bring justice. The family, once powerful in the shadows, now faced the reality of their actions. Their polite smiles had been replaced by fear, shame, and confusion. The exposure did more than just reveal the abuse. It shook the town. People began to speak openly about similar problems, realizing that silence had allowed cruelty to continue for far too long. Berman, Sana, and the few trusted allies who had helped carefully guide the process became examples of courage, showing that standing up for what is right can change lives. After the confrontation, the abusers were confronted legally. The lawyer had ensured that proper procedures were followed, making it impossible for them to escape the consequences of their actions. The town, once silent, now had no choice but to acknowledge the abuse and the need for change. Sana's family, stripped of the power they had hidden behind polite appearances, faced justice, and the community began to reflect on how they could prevent such situations in the future. Sana, meanwhile, felt a sense of relief she had never known. The burden of fear which had weighed heavily on her for years was finally lifted. She could walk freely, speak openly, and even dream again without the constant shadow of violence hanging over her.
Arman continued to support her, helping her navigate the aftermath and encouraging her to pursue the life she had always deserved. The town slowly began to change.
People who had turned a blind eye before started to speak out when they noticed signs of trouble. Families began to pay more attention to the well-being of their neighbors. It was as if Arman and Sana's courage had sparked a quiet revolution, a reminder that silence allows cruelty to thrive, while courage and action can bring about real change. Arman also reflected on what had happened. He realized that protecting someone was more than just physical safety. It was emotional support, trust, patience, and careful planning. By standing with Sana and helping her find her voice, he had not only changed her life but also shaken the foundation of a town that had hidden its problems for too long. Sana, for her part, began to rebuild her life slowly. She enrolled in classes she had always wanted to take, explored hobbies like painting and reading, and spent time with people who respected and cared for her. Each day was a step toward freedom, confidence, and happiness. Arman remained a constant source of support, always encouraging her, reminding her of her worth, and celebrating her victories, no matter how small. The confrontation had also taught the town an important lesson. People learned that appearances can be deceiving, that cruelty can exist even in polite families, and that action is necessary when someone suffers in silence.
Arman and Sana's story spread quietly, but the impact was felt deeply.
The town began to change slowly, becoming more aware, more compassionate, and more willing to stand against injustice.
Even though the confrontation had ended, Arman and Sana knew that their journey was not over.
But healing takes time, and trust, confidence, and courage are built slowly. But for the first time in years, they both felt hope that life could be safe, joyful, and free from fear. They also felt a sense of empowerment, knowing that standing up for what is right can create change, even in a town that once seemed silent and indifferent. One evening, as they sat in the garden reflecting on the events, Sana looked at Arman with gratitude. "Bert, I never thought I could feel this safe." she said softly. I thought my life would always be full of fear.
But now, I can imagine a future where I'm free.
Armin smiled, feeling a deep sense of satisfaction. You've always had the courage, Sana, he said.
You just needed someone to help you find it, and now the world can see it too. The night was calm, and for the first time in many years, the air around Sana's home felt peaceful.
The confrontation had been difficult, but necessary. The town had been shaken, yes, but it was a necessary shake, a reminder that justice, courage, and truth cannot be ignored forever. Peso. As they prepared to rest that night, both Arman and Sana felt a mixture of relief and anticipation. Relief that the immediate danger had passed, and anticipation for the new life that awaited them. The journey ahead would be about healing, rebuilding, and embracing the freedom that had been denied for so long. Armin knew that more challenges might come, but he also knew that with patience, courage, and careful planning, anything could be overcome. Sana had faced years of fear, but she had survived. She had found a voice. And now, with the support of people who truly cared, she could step into a future full of hope, happiness, and opportunity. And so, in that quiet town, the confrontation became a turning point.
It was not just about punishment or justice. It was about awakening courage, protecting the vulnerable, and reminding everyone that silence allows cruelty to grow, but bravery and action can bring light to even the darkest corners of life.